From the heart of our nation's capital in Washington, D.C., bringing compelling interviews, insightful analysis, taking you beyond the headlines and sound bites into conversations with our nation's leaders and newsmakers, all from a biblical worldview. Washington Watch with Tony Perkins starts now.
Today, we once again urge Iran to revert to the path of peace and dialogue. I cannot stress enough the possibility of real, transformative, positive opportunity for the nation and people of Iran is on the table. But President Trump's patience is not unlimited.
That was U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations Mike Waltz earlier today at the UN Security Council addressing the conflict with Iran. Welcome to this Thursday, July 2nd edition of Washington Watch. I'm Tony Perkins, your host. Thanks for joining us. Well, coming up, Congress may be out of session, but critical work continues behind the scenes on some of the nation's top priorities, including the future of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, also known as FISA. Florida Congressman Greg Steube, a member of the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence, joins us to discuss what's happening behind those closed doors. Plus, retired Brigadier General John Teichert will join us for an assessment of the U.S.-Iran indirect talks that took place this week in Doha, Qatar. And is the English crown surrendering its historic defense of the Christian faith? Peter McElvena, who is co-founder of Hearts of Oaks, joins us live from England. All of that and more straight ahead. All right, let's start with the news out of the Middle East. Iran has warned the U.S. and Israel against attacks as it prepares for the funeral of Iran's former supreme leader, Ali Khamenei. The supreme leader was killed more than 4 months ago on the first day of the war. Joining me now to discuss this is Washington Watch reporter Mary Stackhouse. Mary, walk us through the latest in what's happening with Iran.
Tony, there's a lot of rapid developments coming out of the Middle East right now. Funeral processions for the former supreme leader are scheduled for tomorrow. They're set to wrap up on July 9th with his burial. A high-level Iranian official promised Tehran would deliver an immediate and powerful response to any threat against its people or leadership. Yesterday in Iran, the U.S. wrapped up a round of indirect technical talks. Here's what a spokesperson from the Foreign Office for Pakistan had to say about the talks.
There was positive progress made on issues related to the different aspects of the Islamabad MOU building on the Lake Lucerne summit. 2, parties agreed to continue discussion over the coming period. And 3, next meeting to be set at the earliest possible time following the funeral procession of the former Iranian supreme leader.
They reportedly focused on issues like the Strait of Hormuz and the unfreezing of frozen Iranian assets. Now, the next round of talks are expected to take place, like he said, soon after the funeral processions. In the meantime, the clock is still ticking as both the U.S. and Iran have agreed to negotiate a final nuclear deal by mid-August. Tony?
All right, well, speaking of the Middle East, today marks a somber milestone as Israel observes 1,000 days since the tragic attacks by Hamas on October the 7th, 2023. There's been a series of nationwide memorials and protests. Mary, tell us about today's events.
Sure, Tony. It's certainly a very heavy and somber day for Israel. Today across the country, there have been memorials and marches to mark the tragic occasion. An installation marking the massacre was set up on Tel Aviv beach, signifying the days that have passed since the attacks. There have also been some protests over the Israeli government for not more effectively preventing the horrific attacks by Hamas. A memorial exhibit in Hostages Square was set up in Tel Aviv, and it showed belongings and photos of those killed on that day by Hamas militants. And this was, of course, in memory of those who were murdered. The toys of young children who were killed were also on display, and that was especially heartbreaking to see. Here's a clip from an Israeli mother whose son was killed in the attacks.
We miss him very, very much, and we saw how they killed him through the Nokbot go through, and we hope for change in the country because I have another daughter and the grandchildren, and I hope our future will be better.
Hamas terrorists stormed into Israeli border communities, killing some 1,200 people and kidnapping over 150 others, mostly civilians. The Israeli people, we are going to continue praying for them. Tony?
Yeah, I've been to the hostage square there a number of times since that event on October 7th. And, I think it's helpful to be reminded that what is happening in the Middle East all started because of what Hamas did on October the 7th. Let's turn to some news out of Washington. The Pentagon says it's making a major shift in how it handles future combat by launching a centralized hub to manage military drones and autonomous technology. Walk us through this news, Mary.
So, Tony, this new department is designed to expand drone and autonomous systems programs. The idea is to get advanced drone tech into the hands of U.S. forces much faster than before. Now, this comes as the Trump administration ramps up its drone dominance initiative, which aims to deploy massive numbers of these systems to stay ahead of global competitors. Of course, this is important technology. It's important because technology is rapidly becoming more sophisticated. Last year in a post on X, Elon Musk said that drones are the future of warfare. Manned aircraft are not. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth says that next year, the military is preparing to roll out tens of thousands of small-scale drones to American forces. There are plans to provide hundreds of thousands more by 2027. Tony?
All right, Mary, thanks so much for the updates. All right, as I mentioned, while Congress is out for the next 2 weeks, the table is being set for lawmakers when they return to Capitol Hill. Number of big issues that they have to deal with. We talked about the National Defense Authorization Act yesterday that did not get passed. But they also still have to tackle Section 702 of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, FISA. It's a key intelligence tool for national security that lapsed. Now, that has to be reauthorized. Joining us now to discuss this and more is Congressman Greg Steube, who serves on the House Ways and Means Committee and the Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence. He represents the 17th Congressional District of Florida. Congressman Steube, welcome back to Washington Watch.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Happy 4th of July weekend.
Yeah, I wish we could light off fireworks this weekend in Sarasota, Manatee County, but because we haven't had a lot of rain and there's a burn ban, it's only going to be at commercial sites, but we'll still have a great 4th.
Well, you can. It's kind of like the fire. The fireplace you watch on your TV at Christmas time, so you can just watch them. Watch them on TV. All right, so let's talk about this. You're on the Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence. You oversee a lot of the intelligence on that committee. Section 702. You and I have talked about this before. A vital part of the collection of foreign intelligence. Been some controversy surrounding it. A lot of it cleaned up. Where does it stand?
Well, it stands right now kind of in limbo because we don't have the votes to, we're not passing rules on the floor. We're not able to get the votes for this bill. I think we should wait for the Senate to send us something at this point. Part of this that has hung this up has been the appointment of the DNI and then Clayton's appointment that came after the current DNI. So that's caused some turmoil as well. But the bottom line is foreign collection is vitally important to the safety and security of the American people. The authorizations are till 2027, but Congress, obviously, it takes us a long time to do things. We have to act and make sure that there's no lapse in coverage. This is foreign surveillance of bad actors in foreign countries. So there's a lot of confusion with FISA because you have Title I, Title II, and 702. But 702 is foreign collection of adversaries and terrorists and other nations that wish to harm us, which obviously our intelligence agencies use to protect our nation. We desperately need this. Think of Osama bin Laden. Think of drug cartels in Mexico. These are the type of things that we have to have the ability to surveil and see what type of communications our enemies are doing in foreign lands.
Now, are there conversations taking place now to try to iron out the differences between the two chambers?
Not specifically, because I don't, I'm of the opinion that after Pulte got nominated temporarily and there was so much turmoil about his appointment, that shut down the entire process because there was a Senate bill that was going to come over that the Democrats were going to vote for. Again, you need 60 votes to get anything done in the Senate. because Thune won't nuke the filibuster. So the Democrats have control over there. If the Democrats weren't involved in the 60-vote threshold on the Senate, then we would have a bill. So I don't know where negotiations are on the Senate side with that. Democrats have said that now with Clayton coming in, they're okay with him as a DNI. But Trump wanted Pulte to go ahead and kind of start his process. So you'd have to ask the Senate, but we have to get this passed by at least the end of the year so there's not a lapse in time.
Are you concerned from a national security standpoint with the lapse in the authorization of this?
Yes, and if we lose this power of our intelligence agencies to surveil communications in foreign lands, it would be devastating to a lot of the different programs and operations that we have going on worldwide.
Now, are you comfortable with the reforms that have been made? Those that are saying that this violates privacy rights of Americans who get caught up in this net of foreign surveillance. Are you comfortable that those concerns have been addressed?
Well, there's Title I, Title II, and 702. Title I was what was abused to surveil Trump and his campaign. 702 has never been abused because it's foreign collection. And not a single member of Congress, a Republican or Democrat, should have a problem with us surveilling communications of terrorists in, say, Syria or in Iraq or in Iran or wherever in the world who are wishing to harm the American homeland. There shouldn't be any doubt whatsoever with that, and there's no constitutional protections of non-citizens in foreign lands. So 702, which is what has to be reauthorized, there shouldn't be any problem, but it gets lopped in with the rest of FISA, and there's this issue about a warrant requirement. And having now been on the committee and talking to the intelligence agencies, having conversations with the DOJ, at a point in time where they're going to actually try to attempt to get data of an American citizen that's, let's say, having conversations with somebody in a foreign land or a foreign terrorist, they get a warrant before they get that information. So the hiccup becomes between querying the name and getting the data. I feel very comfortable about where the law is with all the reforms that passed last year. So I think it was either in the Intelligence Authorization Act or the NDAA last year that we put like 56 different reforms to prevent the abuses in FISA Title I that happened on Trump during Russia collusion hoax. And so, yeah, I feel very comfortable about where we're at as a nation on the protections of the constitutional provisions within the confines of searching American citizens on American soil.
Very good. We've got just a little over a minute left. I want to turn to another topic. This week, the U.S. Supreme Court delivered a major victory for female athletes and common sense, I would say, upholding the state laws of Virginia, West Virginia, and Idaho to prevent biological males from infiltrating female-only sports. You've been leading on that issue for a long time. You authored the Protection of Women and Girls Sports Act. Your reaction to the ruling?
Well, it's a great ruling. The challenge is that it only affects these states that have taken action to protect women in girls' sports. We still have to pass my act that would protect women's and girls nationwide. It's passed the House multiple times. Again, you're hung up in the Senate because of the 60 vote threshold with the filibuster. So it won't become law because no Democrat is going to vote for this. But it is a great ruling for the states who have taken action to protect the girls in their states to ensure that biological men are not competing in girls' sports in those states. Yeah,
I was talking with the Attorney General of West Virginia earlier today, and he was saying Congress has to act because if not, you're going to have 23 states that continue to deny women the opportunity to have equality in sports. Congressman Greg Steube, always great to see you. Thanks so much for taking time to join us, and happy 4th.
Anytime. You too.
All right, folks, don't go away. Coming up, indirect talks in Qatar between the U.S. and Iran. We look at it.
America. What formed the fabric of our freedom? What stitched together the hearts of those that fastened the stars and stripes? 250 years ago, our founding fathers penned the invisible words woven within every heart, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Unite with others who will pledge to defend these eternal truths today at Family Research Council's Pray Vote Stand Summit, September 24th to the 26th at Cornerstone Chapel in Northern Virginia. In 1776, our country declared independence in reliance upon divine providence. In 2026, in the same spirit, we'll declare dependence upon God by gathering for a time of prayer, inspiration, and action. Use promo code AMERICA at checkout for a $25 discount. Register now at PrayVoteStand.org.
The family is the oldest, most tested, and most reliable unit of society. It is divinely created and sustained. And yet, there are those who are always tampering with its values and structure. That's why we need organizations like the Family Research Council that can effectively defend and strengthen the family.
Family Research Council began over 40 years ago, like all great movements of God, with prayer. Today, rooted in the heart of the nation's capital, FRC continues to champion faith, family, and freedom in public policy and the culture from a biblical worldview.
FRC is one of those bright lights that helps us focus on true north. And I shudder to think, had they not been here, that it could have been worse.
The Family Research Council has literally millions of people that follow what they do. And that small army makes a difference. Every time I meet with Tony, he prays for me. That matters. This is a grassroots organization. Tony and his team in Washington do a great job, but the power of the FRC is the people.
It's just a wonderful parachurch organization that doesn't seek to take the place of the church, but it seeks to assist the family and the church as we try to move forward successfully, not in a defensive mode, but in an offensive mode as we seek to live our lives according to the Holy Scriptures.
FRC is not going to be whooped. We're going to fight. We're going to take a stand. And again, we don't retreat.
To thousands of Americans who love this country and happen to believe the Bible as a definitive way to live, we will not be silent. We will not shrink back. We will not apologize for biblical truth. We will continue to stand for it. Welcome back to Washington Watch. Thanks for joining us. We have a special resource available for you as we celebrate the 250th anniversary of our country. This is something that I've mentioned it, I think last week before. It's something I've been working on for, I would say, probably 15 years. It is a coffee table picture book of the monuments in Washington, D.C., the buildings, the monuments, and the Christian heritage of our country that's reflected in those monuments and those buildings. I started this project many years ago when they were literally wanting to take "In God We Trust," God off of buildings. In fact, Nancy Pelosi, when they built the visitor center, refused to put "In God We Trust" in the visitor center. So we thought we better take pictures and document all this before it's gone. Well, it turns out we finished it just in time for the 250th anniversary of our country, and it is a beautiful, full-color coffee table book giving you that Christian heritage of our country. If you'd like to get a copy of that book, you'd like to order a copy for $54.95. You can get a copy that's $54.95. In fact, if you get two, we'll sell them to you for $100. But just text the word book to 67742, book to 67742. It's a beautiful book, great discussion item, but again, documenting America's Christian heritage. All right, this week, as we were mentioning, indirect talks between the U.S. and Iran concluded in the early morning hours today and were reportedly very good, according to President Trump. Both Pakistan and Qatar, which have been mediating, are saying that positive progress was made. However, Tehran's top negotiator said they would not take part in further talks until the conditions of the MOU were met, including an end to the fighting on all war fronts, which is a reference to Israel and Hezbollah. Joining us now to discuss this and more is retired Brigadier General John Teichert, former Assistant Deputy Undersecretary of the Air Force for International Affairs. He has also previously served as our nation's senior defense official in Iraq, and served as commander of the Joint Base Andrews as well as Edwards Air Force Base. General Teichert, welcome back to Washington Watch. Thanks for joining us.
Tony, as always, thanks for having me.
So according to reports, Iran now acknowledges that some nuclear inspections will take place, while some sanctions relief money would be used to buy goods for the Iranian people. What other developments have there been over the last few days?
Tony, actually, my concern is the lack of developments. We entered originally into the ceasefire 3 months ago in early April, and there was one and only one primary stipulation, and that was that Iran would open up the Strait of Hormuz, no strings attached. They never have fulfilled even that basic requirement. And now there's a little bit of talk about the nuclear program, a little bit of talk about sanctions relief or returning seized assets. But my biggest concern is that they continue to string along this process and have not fulfilled their most basic requirements. And now that we've lifted the blockade, we've taken the pressure off of them.
You know, I thought it was just me, but that's kind of, to me, it sounds like they're still talking about what they want to talk about. They're still arguing over the details of the 14 paragraphs of the Memorandum of Understanding. We're not getting to the heart and soul of what the issues are.
I think you're right, Tony. And now that we've lifted the blockade, they're earning about $6 billion a month in oil revenue. That means that they're reconstituting their military force without any pressure from the United States. I also believe, they firmly believe, that we have taken the military option off the table and have ceded the initiative to them. And now we're not getting to the heart of the matter, which is Iran's ability to project power and threaten others, primarily through their nuclear program.
This is the history of the regime. They are experts at negotiating and never arriving at the conclusion, and they usually string people along. You know, it's kind of like the kids that just keep pestering their mother until the mother just is exasperated and gives up. I mean, I think that's what we've seen internationally, historically, with Iran.
Well, and my fear is that it is drastically harmful to our national security interests and those of our partners and allies in the region if we walk away and we give up. When we were at the end of major combat operations at the beginning of April, the regime was strangled and struggling, and we had the initiative, and then we gave back the initiative to them. And my concern is now that we've grown bored with what's going on, and we're going to let Iran achieve its strategic objectives to the detriment of ours, because we're just not interested in sticking it out.
I mean, it could be the political pressure with the midterm election coming up, and of course the American people concerned about the rise of oil, gasoline prices. We've known this for a long time, that the Strait of Hormuz was a potential Achilles heel for us, because if they could cut off the oil, even though we don't get most of our oil from there, ours does not come from there, but it has global implications. Is this yet another reminder that we need to be independent when it comes to energy here in this country so that we're not affected by these things and we can actually finish the work that we start in cases like this?
Well, Tony, I agree. And the reason why we've been able to weather this period of the last several months far better than the rest of the planet is that we are a net exporter of energy. But because these energy markets are all tied together, the prices are dependent on one another. But absolutely, yes, we need to continue to be a net exporter of energy. We also have to praise the president for what he did a year ago in destroying Iran's nuclear program in Operation Midnight Hammer. That has given us the time and the luxury of time without worrying about an imminent nuclear threat from Iran. But I wish that we would have followed through on this year's major combat operations to potentially see the regime change, or at least not let them threaten our interests like they are now.
Well, as they say, the fat lady hasn't sung yet, so we'll see what happens. We've got a little over a minute left, General. Today marks the milestone for Israel of 1,000 days since October 7th and those terrorist attacks. Is Israel safer today, in your opinion?
Tony, if you would have asked me that question towards the end of the 12-day war a year ago, I would have said absolutely yes, that Israel had defeated Hamas, they had decimated Hezbollah, that they had neutered Iran during the 12-day war. But we then stopped them prematurely from finishing the job a year ago. And now I fear that Iran is sufficiently strong and emboldened by the way that this has ended thus far. And I'm concerned that that makes us less safe and makes Israel less safe as well.
Well, that's certainly something we need to be praying about as we look forward into the rest of this year. General Teichert, I want to thank you for joining us. Always appreciate your insight, your opinions.
Thank you so much, Tony.
And happy 4th of July. Folks, really, that is something we need to be praying about. I mean, there is the potential. I think we're at a tipping point of seeing the Middle East being much more secure, stabilizing the entire region, affecting the entire world. We're that close. We got to stay the course. All right, stick with us. We're going to be back with more right after this.
The Stand Firm app brings trusted Family Research Council resources together in one place. Stay informed with news articles from the Washington Stand, watch interviews from Washington Watch, explore courses produced by FRC, and find many other resources to equip you to engage culture and government from a biblical perspective. Download the Stand Firm app today by texting APP to 67742 or by searching for Stand Firm in your app store.
Have you noticed the upsurge in gambling ads? How could you not? The ads are big, bold, shiny. They virtually glitter with gold. Well, fool's gold, because as they say, the house always wins. But some lessons are easily forgotten, and nowhere is this more evident than the rise of the sports betting industry. Since 1992, 39 states and Washington, D.C. have legalized sports betting, and as a result, more than $600 billion has been wagered on sports since 2018. Now, Christians should be instinctively concerned about the latest growth in gambling. For one, gambling profits are often losses for those least able to afford them, causing unnecessary friction within families. Secondly, it's inherently exploitative. The gambling industry necessarily harms one person to benefit another. Gambling offers me the chance to gain at your expense. For me to win, you must lose. But even if I win, I lose the dignity and satisfaction of earning what I have. By greenlighting gambling, cities and states across our nation take the short-term gain of a little extra revenue for the long-term loss of strong communities. States think they're winning when in the long run, really, they are losing. Remember, the house always wins. Follow Family Research Council's news outlet, The Washington Stand, for more stories that speak out against policies undercutting strong families and strong communities. Because the only house that truly wins is a house built on a solid rock, God Himself.
The following segment of Washington Watch is underwritten by Patriot Mobile, a champion of First and Second Amendment rights, military, veterans, first responders, and a strong supporter of the sanctity of life. To learn more about Patriot Mobile's nationwide service across all 3 major U.S. networks, go to tonyperkins.com.
All right, welcome back. I'm just checking out my Patriot mobile phone. You can get one for yourself. Go to tonyperkins.com, find out how you can get a Patriot mobile phone as well. All right, I mentioned this in the last segment, but want to remind you once again, we have this special resource for the 250th anniversary of our country. It is a pictorial book, coffee table book, pictures of the monuments, the buildings in Washington, D.C., documenting America's Christian heritage. It's really nice. We've been working on this for about 15 years. To get a copy, text book to 67742 for $54.95. It is a great, make a great gift, but also documenting the 250th anniversary of our country. Again, text book to 67742. Speaking of Christian heritage, it appears that the United Kingdom, well, they may, that Christian heritage may be slipping away. Last week, Buckingham Palace published the annual review of the royal family's finances. And what has caught the eye of many is a change to the description of the king's role. It is no longer defined as the head of the Church of England and defender of the faith, which has been there for a long time. Instead, the report states His Majesty is the supreme governor of the Church of England and protects the space for faith within the multi-faith nation. Is this semantics or a cultural and spiritual turning point for the UK? Joining us now to discuss this is Peter McIlvena. He is co-founder of Hearts of Oak, a freedom of speech alliance based in the UK. Peter also works in the office of the UK's House of Lords. He joins us live from England. Peter, welcome back to Washington Watch. Thanks for joining us.
Always good to join you, Tony. Thank you so much.
So let me ask, is this semantics or is this a turning point for the United Kingdom?
Well, In God We Trust looks like a wonderful book. Let me say that. I look forward to getting my copy. But this is a huge change for the UK. This is tearing up 500 years of history. This is how big a change this is. That the king or the queen, the monarch, was given the title Defender of Faith. That was back in Henry VIII's time by the Pope. This is 1521. And that has stayed throughout the Stuarts, through the Tudors, all the way up. Queen Elizabeth II, of course, was a very strong Christian, and she regularly, every Christmas address, she would share why the story of Jesus coming to earth, being born as a savior for mankind, why that was central to her and to the nation. And she repeated that year after year after year. And now we have that 500 years of history torn up by King Charles. And the problem is King Charles isn't a Christian. The problem is that there are very few members of the royal family who are Christians. And with the death of Queen Elizabeth II in 2022, and I was in Parliament today and I walked past where she lay in state in the hall in Westminster in Parliament, and that was 2022. Since that time, we have not had a Christian head of state. So this is a huge change. But again, when the king, I think it was 2023, in his coronation service, it was still defender of the faith. But for the very first time, and of course the last time we had a coronation was Queen Elizabeth II back in 1946, I think. I'll let your viewers correct me. But that was a purely Christian service. But when King Charles in 2023 was coronated and became king, that was a service where you had elements of every faith, whether it was Hinduism, Islam, Judaism. It was a whole mix, and that was the first time in that period of history, hundreds and hundreds of years, that we have had other faiths being part of that, because up to that point, actually, it was the Christian faith, and specifically the Anglican Church, the Church of England, that part of our church, that was the national faith. So this is a huge departure and really, really concerning, Tony.
You know, it speaks, number one, to how, as parents, we have to communicate and instill our faith, help pass that on to the next generation. You know, the Queen, as you said, very vibrant faith, but was not passed on to her children. Let me ask you this question, Peter. Protecting space for faith. What does that mean?
Good question. We're going to find out. What it means is the government bending over backwards to protect Islam over anything else. And we've got an Islamophobia definition, which is now going to be passed into law. And one organisation, the Free Speech Union, that protects free speech in the UK, and is really the only legal organisation that does that, it says that it expects arrests to go up 5 times whenever that comes in. We already have 30 arrests a day for hate speech, for things you say wrong, often in terms of race or in terms of religion. That religion is often Islam. So that's what we have as really a bedrock of our society and a destruction of our free speech. Wow. And is that turning to Islam? It is that fear of critiquing Islam and a rejection of Christianity. And that is the pathway the UK are heading.
Peter, 30 seconds left. How are folks responding to this revelation of the defender of the space for faith?
Well, you've got a mixed response. You've got one response saying this is inevitable, this is where we're going as a country, but also a huge concern and frustration from other parts of the community wanting to hold on to our faith. And the church is also divided between the liberal side of the church that thinks this is wonderful and we can hold hands and sing Kumbaya, and the other part of the church is still traditional conservative. Yeah. So it is very much split, but we need to pray for guidance.
We will do that. Peter, thanks for staying up late and joining us. Folks, stick with us. We're back with more.
One nation under God. America's undeniable foundation of faith.
Before America was exceptional, America was prayerful. Just as Paul urged Timothy, first of all, that prayer, intercession, and thanksgiving be made for all people, our founding fathers understood deeply the command to be devoted to prayer. This great American experiment began as a mighty appeal to heaven, petitioning the Lord of heaven's armies to intervene for the righteous cause of liberty. As war began to sweep across the colonies, the Continental Congress called days of fasting and prayer in their fight against the British. The Lord answered, and the colonies prevailed. Yet in spite of victory, our founding fathers knew that dependence on God in prayer was not to be forgotten. With countless challenges facing our young nation, John Adams declared national days of solemn humiliation, fasting, and prayer to directly address the many trials and call on Americans to seek mercy and restoration. Years later, in one of America's darkest hours, Abraham Lincoln stood upon this unshakable foundation by calling the nation to repentance, declaring, "It is the duty of nations as well as of men to confess their sins in humble sorrow and to recognize that those nations only are blessed whose God is the Lord." We have seen the hand of God answer prayers again and again as our nation has turned to Him. However, the wise warning of Ronald Reagan still stands. If we ever forget that we are one nation under God, we will be a nation gone under. Through war, uncertainty, and turning points in history, many of our leaders have known where to turn, and now it's our turn. We echo the call of George Washington 250 years ago, humbly to supplicate the mercy of Almighty God, that it would please Him to pardon all our manifold sins and transgressions, and finally establish the peace and freedom of America upon a solid and lasting foundation, the undeniable foundation of faith.
Looking for a trusted source of news that shares your Christian values? Turn to the Washington Stand, your ultimate destination for informed, faith-centered reporting. Our dedicated team goes beyond the headlines, delivering stories that matter most to believers. From breaking events to cultural insights, we provide clear, compassionate coverage through a biblical lens. Discover news you can trust at the Washington Stand, where faith and facts meet every day.
All right, welcome back to Washington Watch. I'm Tony Perkins. Good to have you with us on this Thursday. Again, special gift available. I mean, it'd be a great gift to give to someone to mark the 250th anniversary of our country. In God We Trust. It's 150 pages of pictures of the monuments and the buildings in Washington, D.C., documenting the Christian heritage of our country. We wanted to do this before they began erasing it. Literally, there was a time we thought they were going to take out the chisels and start chiseling God off the monuments back during the Obama administration. Well, we wanted to document it. So this has been in the works for 15 years. It's now done. For $54.95, you can get a copy of this. Again, it's a great, great gift to commemorate the 250th anniversary of our country and document America's Christian history. Just text book to 67742. That's book to 67742. Our word for today comes from Psalm 11. If the foundations are destroyed, what can the righteous do? The Lord is in His holy temple. The Lord's throne is in heaven. Those words could have been written for our day. We look around and we see moral confusion, attacks on truth, and growing distrust of institutions. It's easy to ask David's questions. If the foundations are destroyed, what can the righteous do? David's answer is not panic, retreat, or despair. He immediately lifts our eyes to the throne of God. The Lord is in His holy temple. The Lord's throne is in heaven. Earthly foundations may shake, but God's throne never does. Our greatest foundation has never been government, courts, or culture. It has always been the Lord Himself. When we lose confidence in Him, we lose the very foundation upon which we stand. But when our trust remains in God, we can stand with courage even when the world around us is unstable. To find out more about our journey through the Bible, text Bible to 67742. That's Bible to 67742. All right, the Democratic establishment was dealt another blow this week when Democratic Socialist candidate Melat Kuros was declared the projected winner over 15-term incumbent Congresswoman Diana DeGette. That was in Tuesday's Colorado House primary. Now, this comes after last week's win by Democratic Socialist candidates against sitting House members in New York. What does this wave of upsets mean for the Democratic Party, for Congress, and for our nation? Joining us now to discuss this is Robert Kaleli. He is the chief pollster and senior strategist for Trafalgar Group. Robert, welcome back to Washington Watch. Thanks for joining us.
I'm happy to be here.
All right, so give us the your read, Robert, on what this means, what took place this past Tuesday and the week before.
Well, this is the Democrat Party is slowly but surely moving from, what we would call progressivism to socialism. And what that represents, it's kind of like what happened to the Republican Party when you think about kind of the Tea Party movement and now the MAGA movement. It's people that are in the Democrat Party who literally don't feel like it's being liberal enough, that it's not going far enough when it comes to socialist and other type policies. They're looking to move more that direction. And it's driven by a lot of enthusiasm from young people. And frankly, there's probably a lot of money coming in from, around the world pushing this agenda. I know that there's been some work done to look into this type stuff. But it is, when you look at it from, the Republican or Democrat perspective, it is the Democrat taking their center and moving it even further left. And it's like there's not an understanding when you look at 2026. It's not that Kamala didn't win because she wasn't liberal enough. It might be because she was too far to the left. That's like they haven't learned that lesson, and they think going further down that deep end is going to be better for them. This is got to be Hakeem Jeffries' worst nightmare, is getting all these candidates in what should be safe seats that might actually become competitive when they go that far.
So is this kind of a blip on the radar, or is this the trajectory that the Democratic Party is on?
I think it's kind of like a little kid with putting his hand over the stove and he feels the warmth. Until they've been burned, until they've had their hand laid flat on that stove, they're going to keep playing with it. They're going to kind of hovering above it. But I think in 2026, in the fall, if these type candidates do significantly worse, I think the Democratic Party might realize this and change course before 2028. Before the presidential election of 2028. If the midterm 2026 go the way that I think they could go, I think this might be a short-term thing. But if they don't learn the lesson, and frankly, if the Republicans don't make them pay a price for running, Democratic socialists, then I think they'll continue going that direction.
So, Robert, a final question for you on this. The party obviously did not want this because, as we saw, you mentioned Hakeem Jeffries, the minority leader in the House, the candidates he supported lost. These were kind of insurgents coming from the left. And as you said, it could be kind of like the MAGA movement, could be like what the Freedom Caucus is to the Republican conference. This obviously more extreme on the left to the Democratic caucus in the House. But is this reflective of something else that's going on culturally in our country, a departure from our historic roots that support our constitutional republic?
I think if you don't teach young people in school, if they don't understand the value of free markets, they don't understand that free market capitalism has lifted more people out of poverty than any other system in the history of the world. If they don't know any better, they don't understand. You take young people this day and age, they don't understand what the Soviet Union was and why it fell apart. I mean, these lessons have to be learned. And if nobody is teaching this, then it just looks like, give everybody free stuff sounds great. And I can see why young people would jump on board if they don't know any better. So it is going to take, a movement back toward recognizing that the kind of constitutional republic we have is critically connected to free market capitalism. And those two things need each other.
And we can't expect people to just know this. They have to be taught.
Absolutely.
And they've been taught the opposite. Robert Cahaly, I want to thank you for joining us. As always, appreciate your insights on this.
Happy to be here, and I hope everybody want to have a wonderful, happy 4th of July.
All right. Happy Independence Day to you as well. I think this is very important. And we can't just assume that even as conservatives that our kids are getting this, because the messages in the culture, certainly the message if they're in the public school system, God forbid, they're getting something not that's just absent of the foundation of this country. It's actually hostile in many cases. And that's one of the reasons we put together a resource that was probably 35 years total of teaching and research. It is the God and Government course that is available here at the Family Research Council. I began teaching this 35 plus years ago. In fact, House Speaker Mike Johnson was one of my early students, and he was so captivated by it, he and I taught this course together not too long ago. If you'd like to find out more about this great time to share this with your kids and grandkids, just text the word course to 67742, course to 67742, and I'll send you a link. It's all on video. You can see it. Very informative. Talks about our history as a country, our Christian history. Talks about the Bible, what the Bible has to say about government, but goes one step further. It actually has the practical application of these biblical truths in the governance of our country, not just at its founding, but today as well. All right, I want to continue this this look at this rise of socialism in our country, especially in light of what we were just talking about with Peter McElvaney a little bit earlier about what's happening in the UK. So I want to bring in Dr. Keenan Curitan, who is Vice President of Christian Resources here at the Family Research Council. And Keenan, welcome to Washington Watch. I understand I'm pulling you in from vacation, but thanks for taking time to join us.
Tony, anytime. My pleasure.
Let me talk. There's a spiritual aspect to this growing embrace of socialism. I mean, this is more than just political. This is spiritual, and it's something we have to understand and address.
Absolutely. You know, Tony, you think about socialism, and one of the things I think about immediately is how it's just contrary to the Ten Commandments, right? There's several principles in the Ten Commandments that counter socialism. And the first one, I think, is what you're getting at. It's the fact that the first commandment says, I'm the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of slavery. You shall have no other gods before me. And so socialism really tends to treat the government as God. Mm-hmm. And we know that God's not going to tolerate any rivals. We look to him as creator, as provider, as sustainer, not the government. Right. So, yeah, there is definitely a spiritual principle involved here with socialism. And but you go beyond that. Oh,
well, I just want to point out something. You know, it's interesting because I think this is kind of the crescendo. We haven't reached it yet, but it is the expanding of lawlessness because, you know, in history, we up until really the last century, we had polytheism, but the growth of what drives socialism and communism is atheism, a total rejection of God from a governmental standpoint, rejecting the idea of God, pushing God aside so, as you pointed out, government can be established as the supreme source of what is right and wrong and what is acceptable and unacceptable.
Absolutely. I mean, that's exactly what is being proposed, is that God is supplanted as that provider. And now government becomes the provider, the one that people look to. And obviously that is counter to everything we know from biblical truth.
But that's now taking root in our country. We have people in Congress that hold that view, and we have more on the way with these Democratic socialists that have won their primaries. They're in deep blue cities. They're going to win their elections, and that is more of that coming in, this Marxist ideology that rejects the idea of God. And as you said, they're very, very clearly calling on government to meet every need of all the people all the time.
Exactly. You know, you keep running down these 10 commandments and you find more. You got the fourth commandment, you know, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. But it says right after that, 6 days you shall labor and do all your work. So the Bible commands us to work. Now, I've heard people say that, you know, work's part of the curse. God gave Adam a job before they ate of that forbidden fruit, and sin just resulted in work becoming more difficult, right? The scripture repeatedly encourages the work ethic and affirms the dignity of work and the fact, you know, that those who refuse to work shouldn't eat. And in fact, this has all been tried before, Tony, in America. Okay, tried it and failed. Jamestown, first settlement, 1607. Second settlement, Plymouth, 1620. And in fact, it got so bad in Jamestown, all the freeloaders and lazy loafers, they figured out, hey, we can get something out of the common store. We can eat. We don't even have to work. They decided they wouldn't work. And then the people who were trying to work hard said, hey, there's no incentive for working. And so we're going to slack off as well. They nearly starved to death until the swashbuckling James Smith came in, and John Smith, rather, and took over as governor. And he instituted 2 Thessalonians 3:10 as a law for the colony. If you don't work, you don't eat. And absolutely everything turned around. They became productive. More people, of course, came over here to enjoy the great fruit of America, and did so because of biblical principles, work ethic, and the fact that they respected private property. And that's the 8th commandment, you shall not steal. And that's what socialism encourages. It's theft. You're stealing from people who are working and giving it to those who won't. Now, obviously, we believe in generosity. Bible teaches that. And a lot of people want to point to Acts chapter 4 and say, well, you know, they had everything in common and, you know, they gave to people as they had need. But that presumes private property ownership. And it wasn't done out of compulsion. It was done voluntarily, which is different from socialism, which is all about compulsion, right?
So, Keenan, we got about a little over a minute left. The God and Government course. I mean, we can't expect people to know this unless they're taught. That's a great resource. You helped to put all that together. Talk about that for just a moment.
Absolutely. I mean, you've got, Tony, this is your brainchild. God gave this to you. You stewarded it across time well. And, you know, there's different types of government you go through, and you look at what the Bible says about economics, what the Bible says about poverty. And so it does have a lot of American history in it, which I think is very important so that we know where we came from. But as you pointed out earlier in the program, this is practical. This is for now. So I would encourage everyone to download the Stand Firm app or text that word course, 67742. Take your family, take a small group through it.
Well, Keenan, I want to again thank you for stepping away from the barbecue grill to join us here on Washington Watch. And happy 4th of July to you.
Yes, sir. Same to you, Tony. Have a great America 250.
Amen. And folks, again, that resource available to you, text course to 67742. And I do hope and pray that each and every one of you enjoy this weekend as we celebrate America's 250th anniversary. But as we celebrate our independence, let us once again declare our dependence upon God, the one who made it
Washington
possible.
Watch with Tony Perkins is brought to you by Family Research Council. To support our efforts to advance faith, family, and freedom, please text GIVE to 67742. That's GIVE to 67742. Portions of the show discussing candidates are brought to you by Family Research Council Action. For more information, please visit TonyPerkins.com.